Hello, Mr. Tasty Lemons. How are you doing, good sir? If
Oh, good
you
morning.
Hi. Is this on? Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Wonderful, cool.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Wonderful, wonderful. The things of being professional when it comes to podcasting, it's um
Perfect.
it's fantastic.
We are professionals.
Absolutely. How is Lemons in comparison to me, folks? If is he too quiet? Is he too loud? Normally we haven't changed really anything, but Discord and Windows updates. You all know them, you all love them, and they're always doing fantastic.
Yeah, few things make me sweat more than a mandatory Windows update.
Especially when you hear that it might like screw up even your gaming performance and you have to look out for that now, and it's like, oh my god, please don't.
It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, it's definitely something I need as a streamer and content creator. It's great. It's great. But without any further ado, we have stuff to talk. A lot of stuff. You know, the amount of stuff where we say, you know what, we will be done in about an hour or hour and a half with this Battlefield podcast. Ain't gonna happen. It will be a lot. But today, it's finally happening. It's happening, chat. We are talking about Battlefield 6, or as it stands, probably just Battlefield. Let's talk about that.
The battlefield.
What
Yeah.
what what would you think about when they say the new Battlefield is Battlefield?
Yeah, I've given up caring. Studios have gotten so crazy with this. I just look at the past few battlefields we've had. We went from three to four. To hard line to one to five. So
Technically, also
the
victory.
yeah,
You,
nomenclature's out the door.
it's this also brings us to another rumor we will talk about, which would be funny if true, that the game will be apparently available day one on Game Pass. And if there is one company knowing how to screw up names and like everything, ask Microsoft,
Yeah, it's
right?
following format.
Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox One X, Xbox Series X and S. Beam becomes Mixer. Mixer is dead. They know. They know how things work. It's great. It's
Yeah,
great.
they're good with their naming.
Yeah. But I have the same problem. Like, I don't really care anymore at this point. Like, we never had a game which was just Battlefield. And I think we had this. Like, the weird thing is Call of Duty, right? They are shitting out a game every year. And people are just like, yeah, what you playing? You're Call of Duty. Okay, which one? Yeah, just Call of Duty, the newest one, of course. But the thing is with Battlefield, all those Battlefield games are still very active. So it's a good question, like, which Battlefield game are you playing? It's a legit question.
Right.
And when you just say, yeah, Battlefield, it's like, I saw some people comparing it to Doom, right? When Doom 2016 hit, and people were like,
Oh God, yeah.
but they were already a Doom. And it's like, yeah, but that game is over 25 years old. Like, nobody is seriously playing that anymore on a daily basis or is like talking about it. Like, don't get me wrong, the amount of people who are still talking about Doom, yeah, as far as
Our good
few.
friend DSV.
No, he's talking
He's
about
still playing
Unreal
Unreal
Tournament.
Tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he's not giving up that dream. But, man, so apparently just Battlefield, and okay. And apparently we are pretty close to release. I mean, they tweeted on the 22nd of April, which is not that far away, that the reveal is soon TM. And what we heard from rumors and whatnot is apparently that there might be like the first teaser trailer at least coming up tomorrow on Thursday or on Friday, which would make sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a year from now.
What do you expect we will see in that first showcase? Like, do you think we actually get some real gameplay and stuff?
I doubt it. I'm thinking full on, like Bethesda teaser where they just show us like maybe a neat, quick what do they call those? It's not like it's like an in-game cinematic. Or it's not like actually in-game, but they call it like in-game cinematic, whatever the hell they're calling it nowadays.
In-engine.
They'll throw one of those at us.
In-engine,
yeah. In-engine. And then they'll throw the title at us, and then they'll probably shortly thereafter release some actual good stuff in a week or two.
So,
hopefully.
Yeah, what I assume is they will probably do what they did with Battlefield 5, right? Where they showed us this cinematic where half of it never came into the game. And I assume that they will actually not show us gameplay before E3 in June. I have the bad feeling that they will actually wait till EA Play. Even though, from what we have heard, internal tests or gameplay modes are already running, and also like the creme de la creme content creators have been already invited and are playing this game apparently on a daily basis. Like the big ones, not us. Like when I say, "Hey EA, I'm a content creator." Who are you? What? Have we heard about you before? No, it's like apparently the super big ones with millions of subscribers and whatnot, and viewers are already playing apparently the new Battlefield game. So, yeah, we'll probably have to wait. But I would say we're talking a little bit about rumors and about things we have already heard because we are already in that area. So one of the first big gameplay things I want to hear your thought about is raising the player numbers from 64 to 128. Go.
Correct, and this one's been a pretty large rumor they've had for a very long time. And I think it's entirely going to be dependent on what systems they release this on. If they truly keep it all next gen, it's not going to be surprised to see this. Also, for the main rumor we see at the moment, it is noted that it says 128 players conquest, which is important because it could mean it's not every single map and every single mode's going to get this giant lump of players, but they're going to have a certain conquest modes. It's just going to be a giant cluster.
Yeah.
Now, this could be extremely done well, but what could be the problem is if they make two different versions of the game, one for the newer set of consoles and PC, and then one for the old set that has a lower player count.
That's what's rumored,
which is an issue, because what could happen is they're probably not going to redesign every single map, or they might not redesign it well enough to both accommodate 64 versus 64 versus 32 versus 32. So either one's going to feel like an overcrowded mess, or one's going to feel like a desert wasteland. So it's going to be interesting to see if they release it, two different versions of it, kind of which version's going to get the better half.
Yeah. I mean, there was a I don't know which Battlefield it was anymore. I think it was actually Bad Company 2. Funny enough, I hated the 32 versus 32, but 24 versus 24 was always what I played with my buddies, and it
Right.
felt good. Like it was the amount of players which felt there's a lot of action going on, but not you are under fire 24/7. So that was always good. But yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying, and what they normally did in other. I think didn't we had something with the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 that Battlefield 3 or 4 only had 32 players on the older consoles, and the newer ones then had 64. And the only thing they basically did was shrinking the battlefield so that you would get the warning pretty early that you desert and that you have to return if you were playing on the 32 player map. So maybe they're doing the
Yeah,
same thing.
it was a very haphazard sort of rebalancing of the map.
That's the biggest problem then. Just by shrinking together the map doesn't really mean you have fixed the balance issues which are coming with that,
Right.
right? So I they really have to rethink maps if they're really going with 128 players. I think we need bigger ones, but they still have to feel alive.
Right.
And
Well,
yeah,
and that's an interesting development because I mean, in the older ones, they had giant maps with less players, and honestly, some of the parts didn't feel alive at all. But the game was
yeah,
fun enough. So once you got into those fights, I think you can have some dead space, but the problem is you need to be able to get from A to B in a quick amount of time, so that dead space doesn't feel like an endless void of you running through a field for 5 minutes just to die and respawn and do it again. So as long as
wait,
there's
that's
a lot of
that's
vehicles and ways to go from A to B. I think it's done pretty well.
that's not normal for Battlefield. I thought every Battlefield is like I walk through a field 5 minutes and then die. At least that's my gameplay experience. Do I do something wrong? What?
I just never die, so I'm not sure.
I mean, you're always sitting in the tank 50 meters away from the battlefield and snipe people, so shut up.
It works out.
So the interesting part here is, so we are talking about 128 players. But as far as rumors go, keep in mind, this is not confirmed, but this is coming from people who know the gaming industry, who have been done rumors in the past, and who have been spot on. So they have a track record. But they are saying it's not just players we will see on the battlefield for the first time, but actually NPCs. So if you have played Titanfall, who has done that quite a bit, where you have always had those robots fighting basically at your side, they're apparently doing something similar. That they will also, like, yes, 128 players, but there will be much, much more NPCs this time around. What do you feel about
It,
NPCs?
now, there's a ton of different things they could do with that, and I would be curious. I don't think they would just full sale put NPCs in a bunch of different modes. I think either they're going to have a brand new mode, or what they're going to do is just they're going to completely rework Conquest, or have two modes of it. Because currently, in several of the games, we've had two working versions. I think there was small and large in Battlefield 4.
Yeah,
Now there's tactical and strategic in Battlefield 5. They might have one where it's a normal Conquest, 64 players, all the standard stuff, call it whatever it will be, and then have this new one with 128 players, huge maps, ton going on, NPCs all over the place, and a bunch of other kind of smaller objectives and other things to do rather than just go capture a random flag over here, capture a random flag over here, and just rinse and repeat until someone wins. So they could dramatically overhaul Conquest and do that, or they could again just make a completely new mode. But I don't think they would force NPCs on every single mode.
nah,
That would be a
nah.
pretty substantial change that I don't think a decent chunk of players would be too receptive to.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I still remember when Titanfall came out and I played the first one. I was pretty hyped about it. There was this massive talk in the community about what the hell are those things there, aka the NPCs. And then there were people who were like, oh yeah, this makes this whole thing feel more immersive, and also the bad players then have sometimes the chance to kill some bots and feel good about it, you know? It's
Right.
like, and there was Titanfall 7 years ago or something, where people were already up in arms and were like, "Oh no, I don't like this." And that was a new IP at the point, which didn't really had anything to do with anything which came before. And as you said, if they would put something like that in Battlefield, yeah, I can see that people are not necessarily super jazzed about it when you have it everywhere, like literally everywhere in every mode. I It could be interesting.
We're a very picky community.
I mean, if there's one thing the Battlefield community can do is whining about, and we are pretty good at that. And I'm not better. Like, I count me in on that.
We're all part of it.
Yeah. We have also some side information. So apparently, it will be really overall modern and more grounded to reality, whatever that exactly means.
Yeah.
The conflict will apparently be between the US and Russia. And you play as a special soldier, and the specialist unit consists of soldiers from the other fallen superpowers that are not from the USA and Russia, whatever that exactly means. It's a bit like, okay, background story of Battlefield.
Yeah, and this is my worry. I know a lot of people don't really give a single F or care about Battlefield and their storylines, but we've had previous titles that were absolutely excellent on the Bad Company series, but three and forward. So I mean, it had some cool moments. I mean, you say wow, but like I never felt the need to go back and play it again at all.
Yeah,
And I think we're already starting to see that if it's going to be um, set in modern time, there's really I think they're just going to go generic as hell. They're going to try to show off some of the cool new things they have in the Frostbite engine, but besides that, they're just going to be making cool moments to put in their trailer, and then you play through it once, you never touch it again.
pretty much. Speaking of
But
the campaign,
yeah,
it's not even sure if there is a campaign. Like,
yeah,
it just seems to
to
be
that point, I'm
like,
fine.
yeah, it just seems to be like a co-op experience, like in Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront, right? Where
All
you
right.
just had that co-op experience. And yeah, it seems like they are not giving a damn this time about traditional single player. And I will be honest, I don't need it. I, hell, I cannot even remember the Battlefield stories anymore. Like, sure, they had, as you said, they had some cool moments, like in Battlefield One. I think the one mission, the Runner, which with the Australians was pretty cool. They had
Hmm.
there, or the one with the tank. Yeah, there were some nice moments, but it never was like, oh my god, do you remember? Right? Like,
Yeah, go back. In recent history, the Battlefield One launch trailer. People love to do that to talk about that and how much hype there was behind that. Uh, if you go back and look at that, I'd like to think and remember that a good chunk of that was actually straight from the war stories. So there's a lot of cool moments that they're just like, oh, this will look cool. Put that in there. It made for a great trailer, but beyond that, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people who think back and they're like, wow, that was really good story mode. They're
yeah,
just like, okay, now I can get the multiplayer now. And
yeah.
I think it's kind of the moments they're reaching for. And yeah, I think if it's modern time, I'm not hurt if there's no story. If it's going to be a bland story, I don't really care. Go ahead and put the development time behind the multiplayer.
Let's talk a little bit about the things which will probably be on the battlefield. Again, this is all rumors. We don't know if this is true or if there's just a person with too much time sitting on Reddit and has put all those things together. Like, we never
It's
know.
me.
We would have noticed. We would have noticed.
Maybe a lot of complaints about the airplanes.
And then
Like
every
5 pages.
second sentence is boost tanks. No, seriously,
Boost
boost tanks.
Just, just make World of Tanks Battlefield.
Yeah. So apparently, regarding features, it seems like the players will still be able to play as 4 different types of soldiers, but instead of just
Right.
having unique gadgets, player will also have different abilities, which are similar to the Call of Duty perks. So
I hate it.
abilities in Battlefield, you hate it?
Uh, Technically, we've had this for a very long time. They're in Battlefield 5. They're in Battlefield 4. No one pays any attention to them. There's perk style abilities. So Battlefield 5, they didn't have too many because the development of that game lasted all but 5 seconds. But they had for each class, there's certain. Trying to think, like for the medic, there's like field medic, and I honestly can't remember the name of the other one because I never touched it. But you could set
Oh, the
two
combat
different
medic.
subclasses.
Yeah, the combat
Yeah, the
medic.
combat
Yeah.
medic. And so in Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 4, they had a lot more different things you could pick as you unlock them. But again, most people use the same ones. I honestly can't remember too many of them. One was like lesser explosive damage, just like quicker revive, quicker repair, stuff like that. Um, but it was you would either just use the original ones that were set, or you would set the ones you like and never look at it again.
Yeah, it doesn't
Um,
it doesn't it doesn't really give you, like, it doesn't really make difference. But what is if we are talking
yeah,
more of the likes of, let's say, Overwatch
if
style?
yeah, so if these are like less, because all of those were completely passive, all as well. They're not huge buffs or debuffs, and they were completely passive. If these are at all active skills or more apparent passive skills, that would be a completely different story. I for one wouldn't see the need in that. Unfortunately, I think while that might be a cool idea, I think it's one of those things where you see dice maybe changing too many things at one time, which is just going to be absolute balancing hell at the launch of the game. Um,
I mean, when wasn't
so
it?
while it sounds like a cool, right, it sounds like it could be a cool idea, but I mean, just playing enough dice games, the more new shiny things that they're adding on would make me more and more worried about launch.
I mean, it seems like that they have now different studios, like, handling different things. So there seems to be
Right.
like the one studio who is doing like all the content, and then poor LA Dice has to fix it all as it stands,
Carrying the team.
as always. But no, like, I mean, it would be kind of cool if they're adding like some interesting abilities. But I mean, in Battlefield 1, they tried that with different, like, gadget weapons, where like certain classes had like different gadgets, and you had to choose like one of the gadgets. Like, what was it for
Right.
the engineer? You could have the mortar, or there was, what was the other one you could have instead of the mortar? I always forget. Mines or something. I don't remember anymore. It has been a hot minute, and like we had something similar, but it was always a bit more about choice, till then everyone found the total OP thing, and then everybody was using that instead. So
Correct, which I mean that's just kind of typical of gaming. People want to float that meta and then run that to death.
yeah. So we will see what those gadgets are exactly they're talking about. But yeah, we will see about that. Apparently, there will also be like a robotic dog in the game, which is like the Boston Dynamic thing. You know, if you have ever seen those little videos of robots doing completely crazy things, where you're like, oh boy, we are doomed. Those things are apparently in the game.
I
And
guess.
it could be a new vehicle type instead of a gadget, but it could also be a gadget. Like, people who have seen the stuff, we're not entirely sure what it is. I mean, robots, sure, the game is playing in what, 2030? Makes
Right.
kind of sense if
And
they're not.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that was funny in within itself because immediately when they released the date, there was a group of people who were like, "We don't want any futuristic game," and then that realization had that set in on them that that's not
No, no,
that's
no.
not really in the future.
Yeah, that's
It's kind
not.
of funny.
Yeah,
It was
people.
just people losing track of what year it was, I think.
Yeah, people. Folks, we're in 2020. This is the year, or
Right.
2021. Keep in mind, Battlefield 4 was playing in 2020, if you remember. Like, some people have apparently forgotten about that.
Correct. So it's basically the present, but it is technically an altered reality. So while it's the same technology, quote unquote, it's gonna be a little different.
It gives them also freedom with weapons, right?
Right.
That they can just go a little bit crazy, look a little bit ahead of the curve, and maybe envision some weapons which might never come. Like, we actually had them in Battlefield 4. What was it? The
Yeah.
AK-12? No, AK, the sniper AK. I think
Oh yeah,
does
they've had
the thing
there's some
doesn't
guns that just don't
exist.
exist. Yeah.
Yeah, which is like super
But it would be
interesting.
also interesting if so like Battlefield 4, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget the last DLC that came out. I always forget it. At either
Um,
rate, it came out with a bunch of different
no, no, you mean
prototypes from Battlefield
Final
2142 that you
Stand?
could use. Final Stand, there we go. And I'd be curious to see if they're going to pick up back on that. But
No. Apparently,
I'm
the
not
rumors
sure if they.
say, which would have been a point, good that you were bringing it
Yeah.
up. Rumors are saying that it will be more accurate representation of 2030's military combat compared to Final Stand. So there will be no
Okay.
hover tanks or rail guns.
Right.
And all weapons included in the game are those which are currently in development prototype stage in the real world.
Okay. Well, which is not saying too much because we've already got some crazy shit in prototype right now. But I think does limit a bit.
Yeah, that's an absolute fair point. Yeah. So what else do we have? Oh yeah, let's talk a little bit about the crazy stuff here. So, I mean, vehicles, we already covered that. No hover tanks and whatnot. Like, we would get like the normal tanks and aircraft probably, and choppers and whatnot.
Hmm.
I don't really expect anything crazy here, but it seems like one of the new things they will introduce, which makes absolutely sense, are drones. Like,
Yeah.
flying drones, which you might also be able to control. Very, very curious how those things work. Probably a
Right. Similar
nightmare.
situation. We had various types of that in Battlefield 4. There was the MAV, the oh shoot, the throwable one that was more like a small glider. I cannot remember the name of.
Don't,
Um,
don't- Beats
that one was
me.
a bit of a meme because it could one shot a lot of people, but it was very difficult to fly. So people were like throwing them in Metro and somehow weaving it all the way through and killing a bunch of people at spawn.
That sounds
Um,
funny.
but there was also I think maybe in a few maps where you could actually um, spawn in a drone, I believe. Were there not? I think it was like the
No, there was the 8C.
China Rising.
Yeah, wasn't
No,
that?
you could definitely spawn in that thing, but there was China Rising, which I can't remember if it was a drone or maybe it was like a tomahawk. Can't remember. But
I really
you
don't
go into
know.
like this. It would be. It's we're kind of like how you control a drone room, which is why I think it was a drone. It's like a container with a door, stairs on it. You walk up to it, interact with the door, and then you would go in it. And I vaguely think it was a drone, but maybe I'm misremembering that. But at either rate, I could see them adding it in this game to some degree.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, Battlefield 4. I have not played that thanks to my GPU, and I didn't want to buy a new GPU at that point just for one game. Believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Oh, I played it. I played it every now and then, but it's always we hop in and play the 24/7 Metro servers that are still alive, and that's about it.
Oh God, why are you hating yourself so much? Why? It's
It's fun. The first game's always fun, and then by the third or fourth game, you're wondering why you hurt yourself like this. It's a fun time, I promise you.
I can
I
see that.
think.
One of the things we have talked about in the past, and I want to pick up, let's talk a little bit about really game changing stuff. So we have
Uh-huh.
already talked about the 128 players, which is definitely a thing which is a big deal. And if they then decide to put some NPCs in there, it might be even crazier. But it seems like we also have to talk a little bit about destruction, because that is one of the staples of Battlefield, like destroying the shit out of buildings and whatnot. I think we have both in the previous podcast already agreed that we want more destruction, right?
Right.
Please correct me if I'm completely wrong there. But you were more the fan of buildings should still stand around and not be completely obliterated, right? Or
Um, to some degree, it's a little too much, or quite a bit too much in Battlefield 5, to where they have a huge chunk of the building um, still existing, but just enough to where we can use those new building mechanics. Just so basically we know if a new player hops into the game, looks at a completely demoed structure, they know what they can run to and start rebuilding. That, and it would be kind of weird if we're just sprouting up uh, full defensible structures out of our ass.
only
They
in
can surely do that,
Battlefield.
but correct. So we just start slapping some random mound of dirt in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly a whole fortification pops up. Would be kind of strange, but
And suddenly,
I think they've
artillery.
right. And so I think it's a the building mechanics that they introduced in Battlefield 5 were actually pretty good. A great building block to introduce a lot more of that and to let us have more destruction without unfairly affecting the map and balance. Because sometimes previously in like Bad Company, which we've talked about before, if you just knock the whole field down,
Yeah.
if you're playing rush mode, it's impossible at that point for attackers. They're just screwed. They have nothing to hide behind. So it's necessary, but at this point, I think they could do away with um, scrapping full destruction for balancing, because now we can build our own defense.
That could be pretty cool, yeah. So, why I'm asking and talking about this is because the rumors are saying that yes, buildings can't, of course, be damaged and partially destroyed again through explosions. I know, duh, it's Battlefield, man. But apparently, that's not the only thing. There will be various forces of nature like tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, and so on and so forth, which seems to suggest that dynamic weathers are in the game. What's your take on that?
Sharknado or bust.
I mean, we already had the shark, the
Correct. We're
megalodon,
halfway
so
there.
we are
Throw in the
not.
store. Um, yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's again stuff they've slowly been building up and showing. Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5 had these sorts of dynamic weather
Did they?
events. Um, Less so in one.
I mean, in one
It
they
was
had.
more. Yeah, it was like a sandstorm.
Exactly, or a snowstorm like a blizzard was going on in
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
it's very minimal, and it was pretty. You kind of knew more or less when it was coming, what was going to happen. Um, and it would be interesting to see like how dramatic it would be for some of those maps, yeah, because there's just a full on hurricane or tornado ripping through the middle of the map would would be kind of interesting, but also it'd be extremely annoying. So if it's literally going to happen every single map, that might be a bad thing. But if it's like a really randomized thing, that'd be cool.
I mean, here's the thing: we still don't know exactly like which path they want to go with Battlefield. Yes, they want to be more realistic, but what
Yeah.
if they throwing away all the pretense and just going for carnage, like complete chaos on the battlefield? Like you have all those events happening with weather. You can even do like maybe you can do those what are they called? Levolution. I was looking for the word. Levolution
Oh yeah.
things at the same time. Like maybe this time they're just throwing away all pretense and go like, you want chaos? You want action? You want destruction? Yeah, we have you covered. Have fun. Like, would you be okay with that, or do you still want like more tactical game modes?
I think you'd have both same time. And that's what I'm saying. You want to be careful with how much you throw into that because I think it's one of those things that at the beginning of the game, if it happens often, people are going to love it. It's going to be cool because you're going to see it. It's going to be crazy. There's all this crazy shit going on. I think as you start playing that more and more, it's going to be less cool and more of just a pain in the ass as you're playing it. You're like, well, oh, damn, the storm's here again. Um, so for me, how often they're throwing that in there and how impacting it is on the map.
So
So
quality over
you gotta lean in
quantity.
it if you're gonna if it's gonna be very often, it's gonna have hopefully less of an impact. But if they do it the other way around, if it's more or less rare to happen, that it just absolutely wreck through the map, that'd be pretty cool.
I think
But
what
if they lean into both at the same time, it's gonna be kind of a pain.
Yeah, if you have those earthquakes, like you can just assume like if you have a really crazy earthquake, you're driving around with a tank and then the earth is opening up and your tank is just like whee and gone.
Oh, that'd be funny.
That is the most hilarious but also the most annoying thing which can probably happen to you. So it reminds me a bit. I know this is a weird comparison, so hear me out. Battlefield 1, the behemoths, especially the Zeppelin, right? That thing, we both agree that thing was useless. Like it was a giant target who just said, shoot me, come on, give it to me, yay. But when you shot those Zeppelins down, like the interesting premise of it was that it would go down somewhere and might even open up areas. I think those areas were predetermined though. Like it wasn't as random as they made it seem to be at the beginning. Like I don't know if like people just managed to land most of the time at the same site or not. But maybe we're talking about that, right? That's their next level of levolution, where there will be like a super quake tornado going through the middle of the map for like a minute or two at maximum, and then that would change the map completely. Would that be something okay?
Oh yeah, I think that could be interesting, but and that again, that's where it comes down to randomness because I think when Behemoth came out, everyone thought that was an amazing idea. We saw that in the trailers, like, oh my god, that's awesome. We saw it happen first time in game, and we're like, oh my god, that's awesome. And then you get 100 hours into the game, and then every time you see a Behemoth, you're just like, all right, we're just gonna kind of avoid that, I guess. So it quickly
Yeah.
became more of an annoyance than anything else. And it was cool when it would come down onto a certain objective. It was pretty well cinematic. It kept things different from map to map, but it didn't have uh, the long-lasting impact I think they were hoping for. But it did help sell those units, that's for sure.
I mean, the problem is just that with the behemoth back in the day, it was a huge balance problem again. Like, how do you make something
Right.
not OP but also useful at the same time, but a giant target in the sky or a target on railroads which cannot really move to the side? Yeah, I can. So the tornadoes you cannot control. Well, I think you can't. Oh my god, can you think about it like you have a weather machine calling in a
Even
tornado.
better. Oh my God.
Reminds me of the old Command & Conquer game, Red Alert, where the Allies had like a weather machine or something they could call in. That was some stupid stuff. I I think this is something I really asked for. Like when you have like floods or something like that coming up in, like I want that the game changes. I I know the problem with, as you said, balance and map balance, but on the same time, me as an average player doesn't care too much of a map balance, I think, because I don't notice it. Like
True.
my problem with Battlefield is always I am there for the fun. I am there for the Michael Bay effect. Having fun, having explosions, cool. The bigger the better. I never try to be competitive or to achieve anything. Do you think that's how most of the Battlefield community thinks, or do you think like that the Battlefield community is actually kind of competitive? Competitive, sorry.
It depends on what you define the Battlefield community as, really. If it's just people who generally play the games,
Yeah,
I think most people are just looking for a cool, interesting experience. They're not looking too much into the depth of things. I think if you're looking at that core community that travels from game to game and really mains that game, I think it's the complete opposite. Which is what made Battlefield 1 so bizarre and why you saw a lot of new people stick around and play that game. But as soon as another option came around for Battlefield 1, a lot of the core community flocked out. Even if they only played Battlefield 5 for 2 months and then went back to 4. But they didn't go back to 1.
that's
so
true.
It's an interesting thing. So there's just two really different kind of divides that exist now because of Battlefield 1 brought a huge new section to the community that isn't more tactical oriented or in depth. They're just there for a good fun time.
I think you're absolutely right with that, because when I think about it, like I did go back to Battlefield 1 now and then, and it didn't feel like I had a lot of like sweaty people in there, right? Who try to be the next MLG 360 no scope players. They were just there to have a
Right.
good time, and they could still perform giggity after all those time. Whereas, like in the other Battlefield games, I sometimes go back to them. Like even Battlefield 5 nowadays, it's like, what's going on here? Why is everyone trying to be the next pro? Like what? Stop being that way. I'm old. I'm slow. I'm a mole. I'm terrible. So yeah, we have to see. Like I think for now I welcome this extra chaotic touch to the map till I see it in action. And
Right.
then I will see it in action, and then I will remember, right, dice game. Great on paper. Reality check. Yeah. Something. But it seems like when we are talking about gameplay aspects here, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot if this is all coming to the game we just talked about.
Yeah, and that's the divvy between these just being rumors.
Of course.
It is also part possibility that the game is in such an early state. So at this point, it'd be pretty surprising that there are sections that they are just purely testing out. At this point, I would think it's probably far enough to where that's not the case, but they could just be testing things out still
If
that
they're
they
letting
don't know
content
that they want to keep in
creators
the game.
in, probably not, no.
Correct. That's it's usually a rarity. And then also, and unfortunately, Dice is a company that likes to take a lot of risk. So they will, for really no logical reason, will just up and change major components of their game, several at a time, even if those parts of the games have been a large part of the success. They will just up and change things, really for no apparent reason, just to try it out. So I wouldn't be too shocked if they ended up creating all these new different things and throwing into one single title. It'll just be interesting to see how that goes, because historically, even if it ends up panning out, it's a giant cluster at launch. But to be fair, I don't think there's been a AAA title that's launched in the past 5 years that has had a good launch. So
What? I don't understand
Yeah.
what you mean, Lemons.
At this point, we should just expect the worst. But it's odd.
No, I mean, I have to say it a bit, and I know that some people will lynch me for that, but I think Battlefield needed some change. And I don't mean just a more quirky Battlefield that we had with Battlefield 1. That's not what I meant. Like, the core gameplay is still tactical pew pew, right? It's like, yeah, you have fun. It's still like kind of tactical. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to plan a little bit ahead. Like, just running into the map, into the find will net you a 0.25 by the end of the game or something like that. That's not what you want. But I think Battlefield needed something new. Like, things we haven't seen really yet in the Battlefield games. Like they basically did with Destruction, right? When Destruction came in, a lot of people were skeptical about it. They were like, "Oh,
Right.
Destruction, ugh, oof." And now it's you cannot really like play anything else anymore, or you cannot play it without that Destruction. Like, if they would now release a new Battlefield game again and would say, "Hey folks, we completely removed Destruction," I think the community would riot.
Yeah, no one's buying that.
So maybe they, as you said, like, DICE loves to introduce new things, and then sometimes they never get into the game. Hello, Battlefield 5. But I'm curious. Like, as I said before, DICE is a on-paper company where they have like a lot of great ideas, which not necessarily translate well into gameplay when tested out for quite some time. But always hyped for it. Now, let's talk about something else. Okay, for this one, I want you to clear your mind, to just, and don't boast into laughter. Okay? Take this serious. A leak is suggesting that the game will have an improved netcode comparing to previous Battlefield games. This means that when you shoot a rocket or shell on plane or wall, there is a delay between the impact and the explosion. Well, you need to say goodbye to it because you will never see it again. Improved netcode?
Yeah, Mole, this is not time to practice your German stand-up, okay? There's no time for humor here.
Wow. I mean, I tried my best here. Like,
It's a pretty good one. You almost had me.
you almost said, yeah, that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I mean, I think everyone in the Battlefield community agrees without questions. That's what we need, right? Like, improved netcode.
Absolutely, but I mean that's almost something I couldn't tell you an FPS out there that I'm like, man, this netcode's strong as hell. I love it. Dice for sure has had more issues than others, but to say that you're gonna flat out not have any sort of issues with the netcode at all is a hell of a bold statement, to say the least.
Yeah,
So we'll wait and see on that.
I hope it works. I hope it works. works.
As do I.
Especially with all, let's say all those things are coming in, all those dynamic sequences and just things which are unfolding non-stop. Like if the netcode is not stable, it will become a nightmare.
Yeah, if we have dynamic weather, increased destructibility, and 128 players on a larger size map.
NPCs, apparently.
NPCs. Yeah, it's going to be rough.
And apparently, this is another leak, which brings us back to the destruction, that apparently big buildings and towers can fall over, like, the good old China map, but not just one tower, but every bigger building, if you're doing it right, they can fall over, and your gameplay would change completely. Like, you need to find other ways to get to the objective, because that path will be gone because of the tower which just did fall into that area or whatever.
Oh, that's one of my favorite maps. Is like Caspian Border in the remake in Battlefield 4. The original and 3 there was excellent maps. They both had the giant tower which would fall over.
I wonder, like, what would be interesting? What would, speaking about map balance, what would you think about dynamic conquest points? So when you had like a storm or an earthquake or something is like falling apart and would destroy that point, and then a new point would open up.
No, I would think that's a fine idea, and I think that works into what I mentioned, to where it almost sounds like they're making a whole new conquest mode to facilitate that larger player count. So if that's the case, I think they're going ham and changing all sorts of things with the NPCs, dynamic points, dynamic weather, increased players. It's gonna be crazy.
Real conquest mode.
Right.
Yeah, so you would welcome the idea that there would be maybe dynamic conquest nodes to conquer.
Yeah, no, I think that could be a good idea. Balancing is always an issue, but
I mean, that would actually help with the balance or not.
It could, yeah, especially if it's swayed depending on which team's doing what. That'd be interesting.
Like if really like there would be like a tornado which would destroy like the middle buildings, and now your team would technically be on a disadvantage. You, like, let's say the building where the conquest marker was destroyed, so they are saying, well, you can't conquer this anymore. We moved it to another more secure location on the map. So that would actually restore balance or not. Do I see that wrong?
Yeah, that could help.
Huh?
As long as they don't add anything like Battlefield 1, which had the catch-up mechanic, which was horrible. Thankfully, that was never brought back.
Yeah. Wait, didn't they try to do a catch-up mechanic in 5?
I can't remember if that ever made it into the game. I know they had talked about it and were heckled into oblivion because everyone hated it so much. And that's one of those other things so like most players in Battlefield 1 really didn't even notice because they're just there playing the game. But like all the hardcore players are like, holy shit, this is terrible.
Yeah.
We're getting punished for beating the other team pretty significantly. And they brought that big complaint with them to Battlefield 5, where Battlefield didn't have the protection of a bunch of players who weren't noticing it.
Yep. Totally. So apparently we don't really have to talk about the graphics. They are basically saying like, hey, big explosion and destruction will blow your mind. Things like smoke, water, rain, and fire are incredibly realistic. I was like, yeah, expected?
Yeah, Frostbite's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember, oh god, this is still so stupid. When they introduced ray tracing into Battlefield 5, and they were literally showing like, you can now see the reflections of the enemies or of your enemy in your eyes, or vice versa. And it's like, dude, I can't even remember the last time I looked my enemies directly into the eyes to see my mirror image. Like, what are you talking about?
It's one of those moments where you're like, well, maybe we've gone too far.
It's like, I don't
Back up and work on something maybe a little bit more prudent.
Yeah. I mean, they also had it, of course, for water reflections and whatnot, but they showed that one example so
Yeah.
often with the eyes.
The eyes was weird. Now there is when you add some of those smaller details, like on the puddles and stuff like that. Maybe you'll stop and look at it once and be like, "Oh, that looks really cool." But when you're running through an area, you maybe not. It might not stand out, but when you have a bunch of small details like that, I think it really helps with the immersion part of it.
Oh,
So while you might not directly be noticing it, it just the whole ambience of it is massively improved. But
yeah.
yeah, the eye thing's just way over the top. Way too much.
I mean, I understood it when they introduced something like that in Control, where they actually zoomed in on the character so you could see the eyes and you could also see like those reflections. Makes sense. It's a story-driven game and not a multiplayer murder people game like that. So, yeah, I can totally see that. So let's talk a little bit about like some other rumors here, which is about the reveal trailer, aka like some other maps. Like, keep in mind, this are all rumors, and
Right.
what sometimes even happens is that they have like multiple reveal trailers, and when something gets leaked, they will not show that, or they change the trailers. So keep that in mind. Apparently, the reveal trailer will show off a map from Japan, and the map will take place in Tanegashima Space Center of Japan. It will showcase destruction, overview of content, the map, and weather effects. Another map, according to Tom Henderson, which is apparently a pretty well-known leaker, or, well, somebody who has details on Battlefield stuff, will take place in the Alps. And according to him, a massive explosion on the map will create an avalanche. And that avalanche will do a lot of crazy stuff. That would probably count into weather effects or levolution, I would say.
You blended the two. I think that, yeah, if they have a blend of the two, I think that could be done exceedingly well.
So it seems like they're really like showing off all the new stuff, which is good.
I heard Alps, and I just had like a flashback to Fiel in Battlefield 5. So I had to regroup myself for a second.
You know what?
Horrible map.
That was my flashback too. When I was reading it out loud, even though I have already read this, right? I've read this before. Flashback happened. I read this out loud to you, and the same flashback happened again. Just having this glimpse of me dying somewhere in the Alps in Battlefield 5. It's
You can see the reflection of Fiel in his eyes.
I'm sorry, but that map was, yeah, it was an experience. I think they tried to create a metro feeling without metro in the Alps, and then also put some airplanes in it.
To be fair, most of their games always have that one map. Like Battlefield 1, the Suez Canal was dreadful.
I think not play that. Is that a Battlefield? That was Battlefield 4, you said, right?
No, it's Battlefield 1.
Was it? Wait.
Yep.
Oh, Suez Canal. Right. Sorry.
Yeah, there was another one, Battlefield 4. I think that was actually, was that Suez Canal as well?
I don't
Or is
know.
that something else? Yeah, it had like the shipping containers. I can't remember what it was called though. That was a really good map. That was a really good TDM map actually.
Yeah, I don't.
Back when they had TDM.
So I mean, that's really like a lot of Battlefield stuff. Like, it seems like they really want to start a new console generation with a bang,
Right.
but they will also try a lot.
Yeah, because I think one of the points that we've really quickly glossed over that is a huge point is the fact that if this does come out day one for Game Pass, they've got specifically if it comes out day one for Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate, which is a whole another thing. Um, they have a huge community right at the start. Um, it would be
Insane.
significant to say the least.
Like we have seen what Game Pass can do like to a game like Outriders,
Oh yeah.
and this might be crazy. Also, what somebody pointed out in the league is apparently there are 13 maps which were designed around the 128 player conquest. There will also be no vehicle spawn screen anymore. Like the vehicles would just spawn in the base, and you can just grab someone, like one of the vehicles, which is okay. Like, did you ever like noticed that the vehicle spawn or that vehicle spawn screen was introduced? Like, did you ever notice like the difference?
I had. Um,
Yeah.
to me, it makes a little difference. I think it's better on the immersion to for some reason because you're still spawning in the middle of nowhere. Like your body just materializing. Why does it matter if you're materializing and then getting in a vehicle or just materializing in a vehicle? But for some reason, it felt better to show up and then get into a vehicle. Just that next step is good. Some people said that it'll help with vehicle camping, but I don't think they remember Battlefield 4 at all, where that was still extremely prevalent. It just means you literally physically go stand where the vehicle's going to go spawn and wait. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't understand, but to me, it's a very small change. I like it just for immersion purposes. It's really about it. Can't think of any other significant reason.
So, 13 maps. Let's say that's
That's
true.
pretty good. Yeah,
That's a good size of battlefield maps, right? Let me see.
that is if that is at launch,
Yeah,
and
apparently.
also if it's available for the core giant conquest mode, I think that's really substantial.
Let me see how
Um,
many maps we actually had with Battlefield 5. Let me see how many maps did we had.
because what this also could mean is if
8.
it could be wrong and there's 13 maps, but not all of them are playable in every mode.
No, 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 no. They said 13 maps designed around Conquest.
Oh, correct. But as again, as a rumor, it
Oh
could
yeah,
be
of
a
course, of
little
course.
wrong. And
So
that's what you see a lot of times with some of these rumors. They are technically correct, but there's some sort of component of the information that is a bit skewed or wrong.
yeah. So apparently, Battlefield 5 had 9, or well, 8, and then the ninth one, which came after release very quickly.
Nice.
But 8 maps on release. Battlefield
Yeah.
6, Battlefield 1, sorry, brain. It's pretty late here. Please excuse me. Battlefield 1 had also 9 maps on release. So
Lucky number.
that happened. And let me see, Battlefield 4. How much did Battlefield 4 had? 10. Yeah, 10. Okay. That was not too bad. So 13. That would be a lot.
It would be a lot, yeah, as long as they all feel good. Because I'm all about quality over quantity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um well, let's talk about one last point here. The elephant in the room. BR mode. So apparently free-to-play Battle Royale is coming in 2022 by a different team. Go. Tell me.
Ah, I'm gonna pull a fast one on you. I actually love everything about this, if it's true. The fact that it's got a different launch date, different team working on it, and if it's hopefully one free to play, and then two not directly attached to the game, um, because there's game modes out there or other franchises out there. Not gonna name names, but they take up 500 gigs of your memory and they force you to download everything possibly associated with that game in order to play the free BR mode. And then vice versa, the people who don't play the BR mode, only play the base game, have to download everything and do every single patch
think they have
associated with
changed
it.
that though.
Have they?
I
Because that
think
would
they
be
have
delightful.
finally. I think they gave you at least the option that you don't have to download the single player campaign anymore. So
Oh
that's
my
at least
gosh. Okay,
something.
well that's negligible, but at least they've done that.
Yeah.
But no, I like the idea. I had a lot of fun with Firestorm. I think that was beyond the loot system, which was horrifically bad. I think I had a lot of fun in that mode. It just died almost on launch just because they tied it to the game,
Yeah.
and they forced you to buy the base game, which at that point, just no way it's gonna survive.
Now, especially with a game like Battlefield 5, like I hate to say that a bit, but I
Right.
mean, we have talked about this on the show here. Yeah, Battlefield 5. It's it's not a bad game, but it's definitely one of those neglectable games. A lot of people will probably forget that it ever existed. And not because it was just bad, it's just so forgettable in the end. But yeah, which of course didn't do the BR games any favor and it died out. Especially like I have the feeling or the bad feeling, I hope I'm completely wrong with everything I'm saying here right now, but I'm not sure if EA is really aware of how much work a BR game takes if it wants to compete with games like Fortnite, like Warzone, PUBG, right? Like there's a lot of content and work which has to get into the game. And I'm not
I
sure
think
if
those are majorly different depending on what they're going for. PUBG, I think, is a doable standard, but Fortnite, and then you see that with what Warzone's trying now, after getting absolutely heckled for their event, is if you want to go that route and try to massively change and do all these crazy things, you have to really commit some resources to it. Otherwise, it's just going to look foolish.
and
So you can come out with a BR mode and just keep it more or less standard, not try to do too many crazy things. And I think you can get away with that. It's still a good amount of work, and you definitely don't just throw everything at LA Dice and be like, all right, here you go. Best of luck. I think if they're whoever they're having develop right now, I think it might be Criterion, but we're not too sure.
I think it's
Um,
Criterion, yeah.
right. I think if they let them do the continued development post launch, um, and not just full bore abandon it could be pretty well. But yeah, otherwise it's not going to have much longevity. You definitely need a decent chunk of staff sticking around for balancing and new content for those because it's not quite that easy.
No, it's not. Like people expect things.
Oh yeah,
Like,
the expeditions are extremely high.
yeah, those communities they want to see stuff, and if you don't deliver on that, they are faster gone than you can say Call of Duty, and that is coming out every year. So, I mean, technically, it took even Call of Duty. Speaking of which, it took them 2 turns, right? Like they first
Yeah,
released the first BR mode bind to what was it, Black Ops 4, and
yeah. I can't
then
think of what that one is called.
they just called it
Yeah,
BR, like Battle Royale, something like that. Black Ops
was it?
4.
Okay.
It was bind to the game, and
Yeah.
which was okay, but then because the game is of course coming out new every year, that was abandoned quickly, and then they introduced Warzone, which now seems to be like a thing they actually maintain even beyond new Call of Duty games. So I think they have to do the same thing with Battlefield. Like if they stop ever to care for that BR mode, people will also stop to care very quickly because there's so many alternatives.
Correct. And I think that could partially work in their favor. The fact that they don't pump out new games every single year.
That's true.
A large issue they've had with Warzone is branching that in between their last two games. They've more so tried to gear their updates and new weapons and developments for the Warzone to try to get people to buy their new content. And they've had some massive issues because of that. They're adding in different weapons from different games, whether intentionally or not. Some of the newer weapons they add in are grossly overpowered and become the meta almost immediately.
Yeah.
And then they've had other unrelated issues. But I think the fact that Battlefield doesn't have to worry about integrating into another Battlefield because we won't have one for years, that won't be their primary focus at all.
I mean, here's the thing. In my opinion, EA has no excuse to deliver a bad BR game because they have a good one, and that's Apex Legends. Yeah. Like, if they really need help, right, they can just go to their neighbor and ask, like, hey, Respawn, can you give us some tips here, please? Like, they have absolutely no excuse. Then again, well, that could be the excuse. They already have a BR game, which makes them a lot of money and gets in a lot of people.
Right. Respawn be giving them all the bad tips. This is what you should do.
Floating tanks. And you call the BR mode Battlefield 2142. Ooh.
Actually, it would be kind of cool if they integrated, because I was thinking about that. I was curious if they're going to maybe add, like, do the same exact thing, just add in a DLC late in the game that adds a bunch of crazy shit from 2142, or they could just integrate that sort of stuff into the BR mode.
That would be interesting, but I think some people would riot when they are like, we always wanted to give you the thing you have asked for, a new sci-fi Battlefield, and it's a BR.
That would be kind of funny.
I don't think the community would be too happy about that in the end. But yeah, so BR mode, I personally, like, I think we both agree what they really have to do well with the BR mode is, like, the loot system.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. So bad.
I think I have never seen, like, a more horrific loot system in any game out there.
It was one of those things that make you question if they had any competent gamer test it out, because anyone who's ever played a battle royale before is like, you just become a loot goblin immediately. So that means if you die more than 5 minutes into the game, you're just going to be drenched in loot.
Yeah.
So the fact that they just had you drop all of your loot into a singular pile at the launch of the battle royale was a horrible idea, because if they would have killed anyone, they would have realized, wow, that's a lot of loot, one big pile. I can't sort through that at all.
And then even, like, the sorting itself then in your inventory was bad. Like, it was definitely one of those moments where you asked yourself, has anybody played this?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, I give developers a lot of, like, benefit of the doubt, right? Like, things sometimes accumulate, happens and whatnot. Like, I have seen enough inside of the gaming industry to know what's what. But that was definitely one of the moments where I was like, what happened? What happened?
It's truly mind-boggling, because at that point, they honestly had it easy. They were the 30th Battle Royale to come out. There's already several large established ones. They're all, as far as loot, they're pretty much all doing the same thing at that point, more or less, for loot. So it's just follow the model, benefit, profit. But again, being DICE wanted to change something dramatic for no apparent reason. And it quite well backfired.
Yeah, that's true. But man, I think we can slowly wrap it up here. If you not have anything specific to add, of course that is.
No, I think we pretty well covered it. I mean, I would still be delighted if it was a full 180 and we got Bad Company 3, but hey, a man can dream.
I mean, I think there were. I mean, maybe they call it Bad Company 3, but then again, I don't really care what name it has. Like, Bad Company 2 was good for me because not the name, but the gameplay. And we have covered
Yeah,
that in our previous podcast where we did go on and on about Bad Company 2 and why it was so great.
right.
And, like, in the end, it really doesn't matter to me what name a Battlefield game has. They can even call it Battlefield 2030 Noodle Fight. As long as the gameplay is fun, I take it.
When I stream that game, that is gonna be the very first title that I use. No one's gonna get it. I'm gonna love it.
You won't. You don't have the
I
balls
just
for
made a
that.
note of that.
We will see. We will see. I hold you to that. But yeah, that's basically like I think we have covered everything. Battlefield 6 is happening at some point. Apparently, teaser trailer or something. What we will definitely do is when the live stream or something is happening, we will watch this together. Or we will see about what else we can do. But yeah, that's the plan. We will watch this whole live stream together here in the channel. And then we will heckle away and make fun about good old Battlefield. No, actually, like if everything is getting into like coming to the game as the rumors are saying, I'm pretty hyped about that. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped about that. But yeah, let's wrap it up. And before we go, Mr. Lemons, where can we find you?
We're on the purple platform, twitch.tv/TastyLemonsTV.
Oh my.
Usually yelling at my computer while playing Battlefield 5.
Okay. Well, that's yeah, that's on par with what I expect. And again, thank you so much for doing this with me. Like, we will be back. I do appreciate that. And by the way, folks, if you were listening to this or even watching it on YouTube, thank you so much for that. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like. And if you're new to the channel, you want to see more Battlefield content, gaming news, and many, many more reactions videos and whatnot I'm doing here on the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you do that, I would appreciate it. And then I would say, we see you next time. Bye bye.